Hey, hello all. How are things going? Can't do that. Small program with a big notification on TV that goes live with direct link to the stream. um, I was trying to see if I could listen to some um, um, not necessarily music, but like background noise. So to see if I could drown the sound out around me, and I still can't listen to anything. Um, yeah, Linus released a take on AI generated code. Ah, good for him. A take is in an opinion, or I assume you mean policy. Gotcha. Oh, on how to use AI. Right. Gotcha. Yeah, that's a major issue. Yeah, I can imagine why it's a major issue in open source, but um, major issue everywhere, I suppose. What AI is doing, how it's doing it. So, yeah. Oh, okay. So, um, yeah, because people found they can produce things quickly, but at the end of the day, um, it's um, you still got to take accountability. You still got to be held accountable for what you put in. Whether you let a machine do it, you have to be able to stand by it. So um, I can't imagine being a maintainer and trying to filter through all that code right now, because people can produce code faster than ever, and you've got to keep an eye on it. And yeah, that's pretty harsh. Um, lower. Um, I'm happy that Twitch doesn't get any vibe code requests yet. Once more and more people come to see it, they'll want to make more changes, right? That's the way things go. It's interesting in that the website I made for HR Service, big failing with AI coding wasn't that the code didn't work. It's in the requirements it built were not up to par. Statistics on that website made no sense. Um, One of the things I found useful with this project so far, my use of AI has been primarily the front end. Like I've done a lot with the front end. However, when I've used it to talk about the back end piece, it's been just conversation with Claude on the web, right? I don't give it access to the code. I give it snippets of context, so it understands. Like I've given it the diagram, it understands how Kaizu works. It understands the relationships between things. So I get enough context to understand what I'm talking about. I have a project specifically for it. But one of the most useful things I've found is for validating my ideas and questioning the reasoning for my ideas, so that I'm the one still driving the conversation, but it's able to keep the conversation going and challenge me enough. On my project one, I have the following. I start the instructions with the following statement. So when I ask it, when I talk about, hey, I want to do this, and I want to do it this way, it the immediate thing it'll do is say, oh, I don't think that's a great idea, and here's why. Can we go into some use cases, and we'll drive down into actual use cases and validate them, which helps me think through the problem, which is, that's always one of the challenges when you work as a solo dev, to not just be not be the AI, right? If I have an idea, I implement the idea. I don't, validate that idea. So that's one of the things I add to the instructions for the Kaizu project stuff in Claude. Hey, hello, how you doing? So I'm just waiting for the robot to update this panel. Figure I'd get that kicked off while we're talking. See what it does. Yeah, there we go. It'll make the change now. Oh, that's the... Okay, it decreased the font size, which is what I asked it to do. The font size was too big. And does it increase the padding? How's the new job? Do you hear? Yeah. We didn't quite get the padding bit, but that's fine. I'm not gonna fight over that one. At least it's more readable. So again, the concept there is that. Oh, it actually tracked it. It made a consistent change across the dashboards. Nice. Okay. So what I worked on over the weekend was, well, a lot of things actually. I started trying to make the behavior of the signal stores more consistent, so that when I'm clicking on something, I'm loading that data. When I don't have that data, I know when I should update the data, etc. And right, that's what I was doing before the stream, wasn't it? That's what I need to do. But to do this, I had to introduce versions. So to be better track what changes I'm making, because of the optimistic updates, I introduced a version column on deliverables originally, so that I have, like, let's say I have version 1 here now, and I make an edit. Later on, when the signal out message pushes, it'll tell me what version it's pushing, and then make the decision as to whether I need to reload or not. So if it's pushing version 1 and I've got version 2, then it doesn't want to change it. Or if it's, it will only tell me that it needs to improve. So that was one change. So now tasks and sprints and and deliverables all have a version. Initiative does have a deliverable version, but I'm not editing initiative as yet. So this was moving towards this idea of making sure these tracked and stayed in step with each other, and I could actually make sure these loaded properly, and I wasn't losing data or missing data because it didn't know whether it should load it or merge it from the server or what. So now there's a bit more consistency in this design. And you may have noticed a few, if you're looking at it, you may have noticed that I now have these tags. So now when I create a new task, um, it will um, uh, allocate an identifier. So, and it uses it based off the project that this particular task is assigned to. So you don't assign so you assign a task to a project, not to a team or whatever. The team comes later, right? So the assigned users and stuff, these will drive off the projects later, right? So, and the sprints that it's available to it will be filtered down. So we're getting there. We're getting the tracking in there. So all these don't have because these came previously. Obviously, they're just a blank reference. So I'm referring to this as reference, by the way. This is the reference to it, and this will just increment account. The design here was kind of interesting, and again, using that method of going back and forth with AI to drill down to what I needed to actually do. The diagram. Also made a TDD instructions. Seems to be able to do TDD very well. Nice. Can you go through the flow from start to end now with ticket? No, but I'm starting to get there, right? So initially I had intended to put an HTTP API in here and have tasks call it. And then when I went back and forth with the robots, um, it was like, that's a poor decision because it's coupling these two, which fed into my own thoughts on this. And basically it's like, well, just consume the project. And I'd kind of stop myself considering that as an option, and I don't know why, considering it's something that I've latched onto quite a lot in the project as a whole. So now tasks has projects, but all tasks has is the project with the prefix that it needs and the sequence, and it carries the sequence now. So as I add cards, this sequence will increase and give me back a db-2 or ft-2 or whatever, right? So now these prefixes are stored here, and they get there when you add a project in organization management. So organization management is the source of truth for projects. However, for sequences of projects, tasks is the source of truth. And that was an important distinction. So projects lives here, and all that data plus the name and whatever lives here. Um, so yeah, is this partitioned? Do you think if the application was large enough, it would need partitioning, sharding? Um, I mean, I have a natural partitioning ID in the tenant, right? So tenant data is a natural position to a place to do that. I honestly think this system would have to get pretty big before that was an optimization I needed to make. Jokes, how are you doing? Well, how are things? So yeah, I mean, in terms of partitioning, yeah, I think that's definitely an optimization for later. Um, if it, if it's event driven, I think it's more possible it could need it. Um, as long as I'm right now in the database design, as long as I'm using indexes well on the columns on the tables, I'm again we've got this natural partitioning of tenant identifier across most of the data. There's an index on that. I don't think I would necessarily benefit performance wise from that. Um, it's also very hard to introduce partitioning after the fact. I think I agree. But again, because of the design, if I need partitioning, I can make partitioning happen, right? That's not a big challenge. Well, it is a big challenge, but it's something I can work on in increments. Yeah. And yeah, although there's a lot of data here, it's already partitioned um, quite specifically, and it's also um, um, not easily. It's I'm able to tackle each one on a case by case. I don't have to tackle everything. If planning becomes heavy, I can partition that data without affecting anything else, right? And I can do that in a test application and run it in parallel initially, and then switch over. So yeah, it's not too difficult. I haven't been watching any dev content, been feeling unmotivated to do dev or progress in IT in general with all that is happening in the job market and AI. It makes me not want to stay in this field of work. I get it. I totally get it. I mean, AI is definitely being pushed upon us heavily by business overall. The heavy investment in it means that people want to see return from it, and that return comes at us being um, forced to use tools we might not actually be interested in. Also using an excuse to fire people. I think the companies that are doing that en masse will have their own sets of challenges later, but um, uh, I think there's still a place for a talented developer who cares. I think we have to continue to grow developers. We can't trust AI is going to tackle it all, because at some point we're going to run out of it. It can't think originally. So yeah, yeah. So I get it. I totally get it. Yes, I think, and those that have continued to grow and learn and expand their knowledge. I mean, again, I'm using AI quite heavily for my help of understanding and of drilling into ideas and validating concepts. I'm not asking it to tell me what is the right answer. I'm saying, hey, I have this idea, work with me, and I'm using it as a teammate to talk to, right? That is very valuable for my learning. I think I've learned more in the last 2 months doing it this way than I have in quite a while, considering I'm working solo on this project, right? And I have um, uh, no one that has as much of a concept, an idea of how this all works to talk to. But there are essentially no junior dev jobs that will catch up with few seniors in the market pretty quickly. Well, we need to be training people. We need to be bringing people along, and I think again the heavy business focus of AI usage right now is costly for a lot of companies. Like developers aren't being able to use it as a tool; they're being forced to use it in to get them to be faster. Right? They're not able to use it or show it in any other way unless they're seeing the usage of it, and that's not the right way to do it. So how we want to use it and how we need to use it are not like I've used I've used it quite heavily to develop some stuff recently, right? I've completely vibe coded an app for game tracking, but those things move me forward. Those things aren't um, major projects that I need to worry about. So Anthropic butchered the limits today. Used my 5 hour limit in 1 hour. Ouch. I did actually. You say that. I did know. I looked at my usage yesterday, and I was scared because it's been pretty low. Like I've never got over like 5% usage, even with building everything on this. And I hit 11% at one point, and I had 3 hours left on my usage. My weekly limits, I've used 6% of my weekly limit that resets on Saturday. And on my current session, I've just used it now. That's the beginning of the stream. And I'm at 6% used, and it resets in almost 3 hours, in 2.5 hours. So yeah. Well, I just saw that a 50% of the AI data center projects in the US that were scheduled for build in 2026 have either been cancelled or postponed. So, how much does it cost to see Claude is 15 euros per month? Is that good enough? You'll blow through that very quickly. The 15 year old, the $20 version for us is really kind of week. You're not going to get much out of it. I spend $100, and that's what maybe and I are talking about now is, and those limits have been dropped. So yeah, I perhaps not owning my own system to AI. It makes no math sense. And it won't get the performance. Yeah, you'll blow through that $20, that €15 version in a few minutes if you do anything extensive. Welcome in, Timothy. They're all similar. If you're doing code, I've experimented with ChatGPT. I've experimented with Copilot. I've experimented with Claude. Claude still does do much better in code. Um, um, yeah, so you're going to get similar usage from each one. I mean, it's the context, it's the amount, especially so in this project, right? There's 97 projects. There's I don't know how many tens of thousands of lines of code. On the client side, same thing, right? There's a ton of code on the client side. So I'm just using it on the client side. So it's pulling that into context and it understands how things are working. But it's every time I ask a question, it's pulling things into context. It's building that up, and you'll just blow through the tokens really quick. So yeah, it's like 8K to get decent or the good models on your own machine. The payback on that over 3 years is at least $200 a month. I mean, I have a few Ryzen AI 9 Max 395s, whatever they're called, machines now. I've got a 128 gig and a 64 gig version available to me. I've got a Mac, an M4 Mac Mini, but that's only got 16 gig of memory in it. And I've got a few other mini PCs. I also have graphics cards to use if I want to. I've got a few 16 gig graphics cards and a 24 gig if I need it. But it's running the hardware. It's keeping the yeah. Because running local LLMs, I wouldn't run a local LLM on the machine I'm developing on because I need the resources. But it's just not going to be fast enough. So anyway, okay. So if you've not been in the stream before, if you've not been in the stream for a while, this is Kaizu. Kaizu is a project management and planning application. I am currently working through introducing the reference on tasks. And the purpose of this is so that I can get GitHub integration working, right? So basically the idea being that when I create a task, if I create a branch on GitHub for that task, I will see, oh, there's branches available for this task, and I can link to them and navigate out to them so I can see that it's in progress, etc. So that's kind of the idea. So what I was just doing before was I was going looking. These are the deliverables that I've set out for release management and delivery visibility. So the idea or the goal here is to get to this delivery tab, right? So you go through initiatives. Initiatives are ideas, they're concepts, they are thoughts, they are collected, they are managed, and from them you create deliverables. And deliverables go into actual planning. Like you need to work on stuff to get deliverables done, right? So you work through this process of building out your deliverables, identifying what needs to be done. So if you do planning and deliverables, right, you add requirements to deliverables. You can have further discussions, attachments like screenshots or mock-ups, etc. You can have meetings on them, and there can be dependencies if there's other deliverables that this deliverable is dependent upon. And you build out the requirements. And once the requirements are dealt with, you mark it as ready for review, and that appears in the review side of implementation. So developers can see, oh, these things need reviewing. We need to do these things. Now, the product manager or the project project manager would be the one kind of walking the team through this eventually, but the team is able to go in here, see what the requirements are, go off and do any learning or whatever they need to do, and then at a point they'd sit down with that project manager and their team, and they'd add the tasks. Right, so you can add a task, introduce a screen for delivery management. The screen should be made that allows us to define a deliverable, a release, sorry. And you can assign that to the front end and create that task, and now that will be there. Do you do mentorship or internship to help people achieve a certain goal? Paid, of course. I'm happy to talk in Discord. I'm happy to chat and spend a few hours a week going through stuff if that's something you'd be interested in. I don't ask for money for anything. Like, any advice I give is just advice, and a bit of guidance. I'm always happy to talk about software development. So if you want to join the Discord and hang out and chat, you can do that. PM is perfectly fine as well. If you don't feel comfortable posting questions and whatnot in an open Discord, I'm always happy to do that. So I'm a big believer in making sure that I contribute back to people and help share my experience with other people. So that's a big thing for me. There's cards below in the stream. What? 1 second. I have no bots running anymore, so that's a failing on me. Hey Mark, how you doing? How's the Discord link though? Hope you are well. So yeah, so we have introduced a screen for release management. So obviously I've got some changes to make here. Mojo, good morning. Changes to make here because this doesn't have the reference attached to it straight away. If I go to the backlog now, it has FT3. So it did get it, but it didn't pass it back, and that's kind of an interesting challenge now, because if I go to the server side of this, when I create a task right this second, once I finish mapping Claude Code CLI, I'm moving to local LLMs, I think. Yeah, the challenge with local LLMs is getting the performance out of them, right, to get the token generation down. Because once you get used to running something like Claude, that speed is incredible that you get from it, and you're just not going to get anywhere near that performance. I have looked at, so I have the framework desktop, and I have now I've got the B-Link device, and I have, if I could cluster them, now if I could use an external dock, I do have a spare 5070 Ti, spare 9070 XT, spare 7700 XT, 7700X, 7700 XT, and other spare hardware. Then, yeah, I don't think those devices are as quick as an NVIDIA GPU. They're good for holding bigger models, but performance isn't there. The AMD software is progressing. It isn't as fast, no, I'll guarantee you. I'll grant you, but it is progressing. I've been keeping an eye on it. Using AMD GPUs is still possible, and those new Intel devices look very intriguing. $1,000 for a 32 gig uh, graphics card is still appealing for the what do you call the not A70s? Yeah, A70s. Yeah. No, I know. I do realize that NVIDIA GPUs do have a little bit of a step up right now, but the other cards are. If I've got the cards and I can use them, then I'll use them. I'm not buying more NVIDIA GPUs though. I have a H100, yeah, but I don't have that sort of money either. So now, as we progress with Kaizu, right, it'd be ill advised of me to not consider AI. So I will be looking at how to use local LLMs and how to use RAG and stuff to be able to provide relevant context at the right point. Because one of the things I'm going to have to do when we're talking about partitioning is I can't have one tenant's data bleeding into another tenant's data, right? So I need to keep all things like RAG and stuff very isolated so that the context doesn't merge between two companies. So yeah. My plan is to switch to Linux on my main machine, buy a Mac Studio, and then I'll move my 4090 to an AI box. Yeah, makes sense. I know you don't like him, but I do kind of learn a lot from Alex Ziskin. I'm kind of picking up a lot from that, watching that stream, those videos. Fedtick, hello, how are you doing? Okay, so yeah, that's where I was going. So when I add a task, when I create a task, I return back the GUID for the thing we created. But now, what happens if I return back? What happens if that result happens to be a the reference tired? Oh, tired isn't good. Oh no, you. So yeah, what happens if we return back a tuple of GUID and string, and that is the reference? Um, Also, Teams is a torture technique for developers. Teams is in the software, I assume you mean. For how often me and Canny collab, it's not often we come across each other in different streams. Interesting. So the first is deliberately um, chosen to mess with Stony, by the way. So everyone gets a first. That's because there's one last, and Stony comes in and immediately claims last every time. So I gave everyone a first because yeah, that's just my little game. It amuses me. It's fine. Why does it show last name first? Where? Ah, teams in teams. Um, I don't know. Teams has evolved a lot as well. Because I'm not a Microsoft developer. I don't know these things. I'm going to be a C sharp dev. I'm not sure that I'm pretty much guaranteeing that Teams is not written in C sharp. Um, uh, Very little Microsoft software these days is actually written in C sharp. It's even worse. It does things like last name, first name one, last name two, first name two, and then when you're not pay attention, you think the person is called first name one, last name two. Youch. Um, yeah, so I think for consistency there, what I need to do, or for clarity really, I need to be able to return the reference at the same time. So we're gonna extend that a little bit. Reference and identifier makes sense to return. I think that's reasonable information to return. So let's stop that. I'm getting outside the bounds of version tracking, so we're going to merge this soon. But that's going to be GUID thing. GUID thing. I'm not creating a DTO just to track that. I think it's fine being a tuple. Task identifier, task.reference. Okay, so that's that. And now over here, result.value. Oh, that is a downside. Public class result, not to be confused with the result. Actually, public record. This can be period identifier, string reference. And now we can just do new results. We just need to make this return result. That is a create dot. Response. That might be. Yeah, that'll hide something else as well. How did I call it elsewhere? Update.result. Result. New result. It was happy to do that one. Why don't you like that one then? Results. Okay. Most of the time I'm just lurking and floating around in the space with being distracted with some stupid ideas. Lurking is good. Lurking I can understand. Oh, boop. Well, that's why. Why doesn't it? Interesting, the generics don't take over there. Why? That's not going to work, is it? That's going to make a mess of that one. Tracked entity response is just an identifier. Period. Can't change that very easily. Oh yeah, I can. Probably do the same here. Yeah, that's why. Okay. Prints don't have a reference. So that would be response. So it functions. We are getting a response back. Oh, we need to clear that context, otherwise that's going to carry too much. And the reference. So I'm not bringing up the terminal window every time. I'm just typing to Claude to update the client side to accept that identifier and reference are going to come back. These will be returned. what I'm trying to describe here is the fact that when we get back a response from task create, we're going to get back two properties. When we get one from sprint create, we're going to get back one. Task will receive response. Um, oh yeah, I'm trying to describe to it that it's going to get back a different shape of data, even though they're both tracked entity responses, which is probably a mistake. But I'm not sure I need a reference to a sprint yet. To achieve a lot of this, I had to go through and put proper versioning on things. So now when you update a task as well, if you go to update task, you get back the version. You get back a result of a version. So the current version that it's moved to. And now as it moves through the system, it produces the version. And that's all part of making sure I'm updating. So in the view side of things, when I synchronize an object now, I also have the version available to me. So when I publish, hey, the deliverable changed, the sprint changed, the task changed, the initiative changed, those can have version on them. And now they can be set. So it's, I'd like to make more changes than I'd like to, but it's fine. Yeah. Well, if you have any questions, more than welcome to ask. So we're going to test this in a second. We're going to see that if we add a task after this is done, that we should see it come back and it will have, FT for any pertinent questions that aren't about why Teams doesn't work well. Does sleep well? No. No, I've been up since 4. No, 3:30. So it's all good. You have another question? Ask your questions. Why are we limiting what questions I can ask? There is that. There is that. How was your trip to Carolina away recently? Trip was good, productive. We got stuff done. Um, it's good to meet people, especially when developers are we can work independently. We can work on we can just sit and work on stuff and not really interact too much if we need to. But the team building aspect of getting together in person is valuable. Um, I think it's I've underestimated the value of it in the past. Anyone, it looks like we've got some people in here now. Anyone who likes watching people waffle on about code, um, Kenny is a very talented developer working primarily in Godot. Has written a library named Twitcher for Godot, which if you are building any integration into um, into Twitch in your game or in your stream, etc. Um, gives you a lot of tooling there. So I highly recommend checking out Kai's stream and Twitcher as a library. Kind of works in both GDScript and in C# as well. So very talented. Claude is currently whatchamacalliting. Yeah, yeah, it's very valuable to go meet a team. The pie animal, yeah. Oof. Yes, that put me up to 9. That question used 3%. Interesting. Now we've got $150 of extra usage enabled. Can confirm. Can it's cool. So is his co-host. Absolutely. Um, you need to go to Canny's stream to believe. Okay, so now what we should be able to do, we can add a task. This task should come back with a reference. This task will have its reference and its do Project Phoenix. There we go. PHX3. So now this has everything it needs for that. I think with your photo, you're just hot instead of cool. So that's perfect now. So that's making that return. So the next thing to do, what does an edit look like here? So my way of working with this, by the way, right now is to do something similar to this. So I use Figma. I paste that in there. I paste the Kaizu branding in there. The branding helps keep it on focus of the design, because if I just give it the screenshot, believe it or not, it'll come up with a completely random white screen with the concept. But if I give it the branding and say respect it, it will actually use the same colors, so it'll get close to what I actually intend. No two attempts are alike. That's kind of a common thing with AI, right? So that's just the way it is. So on this screen, the developers should be able to edit the tasks. See, what I don't want to encourage, and this is going to be a hard challenge, is this estimation here. I don't actually want them to estimate here. So I might actually remove estimation as a concept from the review screen, because the goal of this is to get you to task it out, not to point it. I've been in teams before where basically at the same time as tasking, we point. And I don't feel that's necessarily a good choice, because I think you've got to be given enough time to consider what it involves and kind of mull on the task, which is why I'm trying to do this visibility thing, where I'm trying to put these things into a visible place long before you actually start development of them, right? The idea here is, oh, it's been planned. The product manager has actually got it ready. They say it's ready for review, and it's there. Even if we're not going to talk about it for another 2 weeks or whatever, the developers know it's there, and they can go into that review panel, and they should be encouraged to do it, right? I always encourage developers to go and look at what's coming next, and they should be able to review what's there and say, oh, I don't like that idea. I don't like this, but these requirements would be more complicated. This would be more, lengthy, and the kind of the acceptance criteria will be in here as well. I'm trying. I'm being opinionated about it, but I don't want to overforce that hand right this second. I want that to be kind of a natural evolution. Is that something that would be very useful? Do we want to do that, or do we want to make it more fluid and have just text and then kind of guide? Hey, this is why the system behaves better in these scenarios. But then, from a tasking perspective, I don't want to encourage um, necessarily pointing at the same time as building out the tasks, because it's not something that you should necessarily be doing. You should be giving the developers time. Yes, the developers would sit down and go through the process of tasking this out, but I don't think you should be considering, you know, the the the, the pointing aspect at that time. You should be kind of looking at these more from a, hey, we've got a backlog of things to do. What are these tasks? And yeah, Stony, thank you very much for the streak. Welcome in. So we've got that. We got that. What do we want to do now? What I want to do now is, yes, over here on this screen, the developer should be able to edit the task they've created. I don't know whether we should. I wish there was kind of an AI context, and then maybe I'm not using make correctly. Um, but an AI context of, hey, because I want to basically I want to say, hey, this screen. But if I try and do it in here, it will break whatever I've done with this. It won't create a consistent design, I think. So actually, let's try it. That felt a lot of image. That's fine. That's fine. Let's do this. When given the screen provided, I want to play task. I'll see if it does it. In the past, it hasn't done too well. Now, it should have context of the design overall, so we'll see. Auto Tails, maybe, Mojo. Tails. Taken back to Sonic 2. Um, yeah, so that was a good change. I think we're doing okay on the versions right this second. Let's see how this does. His ears. Um, yes, please. Um, always use your manners, even with the robot overlords. Never know when your vacuum cleaner is going to come for you. Looking at this list view, I'd recommend making the roles clickable rather than adding a view icon. Here's why. Larger hit target, easy to click, especially on the task ID and the title. Cleaner visual design, no extra icons cluttering the list. Standard pattern task management tools, Linear, Jira, Asana. You can add a hover state to indicate interactive. Subtle background change, pointer cursor. If you need multiple quick actions on each row, when to use a view icon if you need multiple quick actions on each row. If clicking the row should do something else. Since task detail dialog. Right, there we go. We'll let it do. Can it is theoretically if Sonic and Tails had a child. I believe. Oh, that's a terrifying idea. What this builds out, by the way, in here is actually um, an application. It actually does build a React app with all the relevant components. So Yeah. Oh, oh, there you go. It's actually did it. Okay, that works. You're telling me I'm just a fast psychic. Okay, so now what I do is I share this over here. I copy that link and I go to Claude on this side of things. I say we need the tasks to be viewable in the review phase. To make this possible, you refer to guidance. Read only. Um, so what I'm saying is, hey, reference this Figma design. We need to be able to use the tasks. And what I'm telling it is, what I implemented last night was when you go in here now, there's no edit icon. You can click the thing and it'll bring up a card. So now you can see the details really quickly, which makes it more usable. But then you can go into an edit mode and change the details. You can discard and get back. Right. So these are more useful, ever more useful screens. So what I've said is use that dialogue, but I'm going to use this a few more times, right? Because there's other places where I show the tasks. Now, whether you should be allowed to edit the task is going to be a permission. Um, but yeah, so consider where we're going to move that dialogue. So don't just reference a dialogue in another path. Make sure we're keeping the code organization correct for how we're using it. Temtic, I do not want to picture this in my head. Please and thank you. Yeah. So yeah, the design there is, I mean, that's a little bit more information. So it might, the challenge I've found so far, when I started with this will come up with wildly different designs, version to version, screen to screen. It will come up with all sorts of weird designs. But you can see it has kept the color scheme in place because I've already referenced this branding page, and all this is a big page of colors, fonts, etc., designs of controls, etc. So it uses this as its foundation for that behavior. So that's where that's getting that from. So it does know enough. Um, what I've got in Claude on the actual code side is, hey, here's the design reference. Stick to this design reference. So even if I give it a weirder design here, it will still account for what's in the design. It will keep everything relative to that. I did have some challenges with font sizes that I'm still trying to work on because some of the screens have really tiny font sizes, some have big chunky font sizes, and sometimes it's actually mixed as well. So just got to keep an eye on that and try and make it ever more consistent. To 10% used on my Claude right now, so it's not doing too bad right this second. I'm starting to think that times of day matter as well. But yeah. If you're interested in what I'm doing, if you want to know more, uh, you are more than welcome to ask questions. The Discord is linked in the cards below on both YouTube and Twitch. if you want to ask further questions about the project, if you want to understand more about the code. Again, this is a large system at this point with lots of moving parts and lots of different pieces to kind of talk about. There's a lot of things I want to improve. There's a lot of things I want to change. I'm learning, right? I'm growing as I develop this, and I'm understanding new concepts and new ideas and ways of approaching things. And the key thing for me is that the code keeps getting better. It doesn't just, I don't just move on from something because it's hard. Right now, these pieces are notifications pieces and changes components. They've been neglected for a little while. They need to have some love soon. Basically, the concept is that changes calculates the differences and collects information from across the system to provide richer change details without costing the system. So if you have made a task, you shouldn't have to wait, or you've edited a task, you shouldn't have to wait longer for that task change to be calculated and produced, because not every piece of information on the task is available to the task in this piece. So the changes and stuff get calculated out here and stuff. So, but I do need to spend some time going through them, because it would be nice to say, oh, you changed the name from this to this, you changed this from this to this, the estimate changed, etc., and try and streamline that process. There's a lot of code to change there. So this is going to, the read-only task detail dialog currently lives inside the sprint boards feature. The user wants to reuse this dialog in the review phase and anticipates more uses in future. Show it when a task row is clicked in the requirements task list component. The Figma design confirms the dialog matches the existing implementation, same read-only edit layout. Move the task detail dialog to shared. Make task rows clickable. Wire up the dialog in the review detail page. There you go. Okay, so we're going to do that. Yes, I'm happy with that. I'm getting better at just not hitting accept and just letting the chips fall where they may. It's very tempting in terms of speed just to hit, yeah, accept. So I go and review and see if it smells. Only a few times has it absolutely been wrong. And I do find that Claude, this version of Claude especially, has a better grasp of smaller changes. It doesn't try and do massive changes every time. Not to say it hasn't screwed up a few times, but yeah, this is starting to look a little richer now as well. Oh, and we wait. Now make task rows clickable. I want the dialogue. It's making changes and triggering the change, the load. Actually, it's connected as well. Is it actually watching that? So this is a new thing. It's been doing this it's done this a few times now, where it's connected itself to check what it's doing, which is kind of fascinating. So basically what's happened is it's made a change, and then it goes through and clicks through the steps to validate that the change did what it expected it to do. I haven't asked it to do that explicitly. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now it's done. So now if I go in there, get errors. That's awesome. Let's see. The task is now shared. So now we paste the error in there. I'll let it fix it. My bet is that store is not holding enough information. The issue is that in the review context, tasks may not have a sprint assigned, but the template accesses t.sprint.name. There you go. There you go. We don't make sprint editable at this point, which makes sense. We shouldn't be able to assign it to a sprint until we're in the backlog. There you go. No hover there, though, is there? Now, for any of you who have used AI for creating views and stuff, have you found things that work better? Have you found tools that you prefer to use to get it to produce the UI you expect? Have you how have you fine-tuned your instructions? Okay, I'm just waiting for that to finish. Oh yeah, it's done now. Okay. So let's do, there is no subtle hover effect on the rows of tasks. This does not tell the user cleanly that they are able to click these rows. How might we do this? Figma did give us an idea, like Figma does, yeah. I'm not sure I like the arrow. The arrow doesn't really add value to that, but let's see if it can pick up the fact that Figma does it. They do. Yeah, there's no hover there at all. Oh yeah, we need to add task row clickable. Recognized it. Van Horn. 79 months. Thank you. And hope you are well. How goes development? Development goes. We've made a bit of progress in the last week. There we go. That was better. So I'm now adding a reference on the tasks. And what we've just done is add the ability to display the task detail from here. So this is the review phase. So now we have a reference and more detail, which is awesome. So now this screen, this should look consistent with this, right? And you can go into edit mode and change things. So the review, being able to do that is a big step forward. So yeah. The manager left, so getting ready for interviews this week. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, product management is an essential thing, I think. Yeah. So cool. So the goal, the reason I'm adding the reference for anyone who's not aware is I'm starting to move towards delivery. So delivery, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a release, and a release will have a name and description and a target release date, etc. And then as you go to implementation, you will tag. I've got to think about the workflow a little bit more, but you'll be able to tag, oh, these items go into a release, right? So it might be there's an output instead of just go into boards, right, and then them going to complete. What happens when a sprint completes? Everything should move out. Or, once something's incomplete, how do you get it to be marked as releasable? But then you'll be able to tag a release on tasks so that you'll be able to see in here for a given release which tasks are done and if they're merged or not, right? So you'll be able to track them against GitHub or ultimately GitLabs or whatever we can integrate with. You'll be able to track to see, yep, they actually are all merged. This release is good, and now we can move it forward, right? So the idea is to kind of show this delivery phase as a thing that you can say, yeah, we can release this now. Trying to stay away from being too opinionated about how you use Git, right? But also being a little opinionated about how you use Git by saying, hey, you have to create branches for the tasks at least, and they have to be merged to be able to say, yeah, you can release this. So whether they're merged into the branch you want is not necessarily the concern. They wanted more new work, but we're still moving off Salesforce and Rails, and the CSM team was so grading on morale. Nothing is ever good enough for that. Recently used AI to create sub apps on my main AI app. That just has the Twitch and Discord integrations, track user go lives and post them into Discord. Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah, I suppose if I wanted to do some Twitch bot stuff, AI would be the path there, wouldn't it? Yeah. New work is much easier. I will say that. Yeah. So cool. So that moves that forward. We can now see that. We should be able to edit that. A screen should be made that allows us to define a release. The release will have name, release date, expected release date. Again, I'm not sure about these. We're going to have to introduce. We're going to have to do this more on status on tasks before we go forward. And I'm not sure I want to introduce the ability to do estimates as part of this edit. That's kind of not really what I want to do. But there we go. So yeah, there we go. So it's still respecting the Markdown design. Yeah, it's crazy good now at reading these dang APIs. I've not looked at Twitch API in a few months. Yeah. I still find the code that's produced is, if you look too deep, you'll be upset. But if you need something quick and you don't care about the actual product output, AI tooling is more than good enough. I recently updated my game library app, and I've been using my AI generated version. I can barcode scan. I integrate with, like, it misunderstood a lot of what I told it to do in the initial phase, but if I can focus on this because I've got those side projects dealt with, then that's ideal, right? Yeah, if you can establish the patterns, yeah, absolutely. But AI goes nowhere near this. I give it context of this. I talk using Claude, but it goes nowhere near this code. This code, I don't care. This is fine. This is all AI generated at this point, but I'm getting a much better design out of it, and I'm learning some of those lessons in reality. So, yeah. Now, these don't have a reference because these were created pre-reference behavior. These are created after references were added, so that's why they get references. So version numbering, etc., is good. I think we can commit this now. Okay, I'll stop that running. I've been way too deep into building a storage generator that all my other side projects are just gathering dust. But yeah, I mean, we all have dust gathering side projects. That's kind of what we do, right? But I think, again, like the game library one, that was something I wanted to do. I've built many versions of it, but I keep getting distracted by it and I get stuck on the nuances. Like UI stuff is not my forte, right? I do not do well there. So having an app that I can now log into, I can share a link to my wife. I can share a wish list to my wife. So if she just wants to see the games I want to buy, she can see that wish list. Um, and um, it updates itself once a week. So it pulls down the latest pricing, so it keeps me in touch with where the market's heading. It'll call things out if it sees price changes, and it just moves that forward. And that was a couple of weeks of a few hours here and there asking the AI to do stuff and adding features. Um, and now I can focus more energy on getting this done. So it's making me faster by allowing me to do a bit more and accepting that okay, the quality in that one is not going to be great, but it works and I trust it enough. I hear that. I let AI take the wheel on the UI. Still better than my back end dev UX. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you've seen enough of Kaizu or Liquid Sky formally to know what this looks like compared to what it did, and this looks way more professional than what it used to. So it still doesn't look great, but it still does. It looks a lot better than it did. Um, Adding a task should return both the identifier and the reference. Push. Okay. So let's go back. Now, the problem with this is I've actually, oh no, I need to do that. I kind of have used this to track what I need to do next. Um, so I kind of made a mess of, I've put stuff in here and then put test data in here. So yeah, let's close that down. Come on, come on. There you go. Okay. So in my backlog of initiatives, now again, as an owner or as an executive or someone who really doesn't care about the minutiae of what is going on, the goal here is very much to provide you an overview, um, potentially as a QTS, um, provide you an overview of um, where things lie at a 10,000 foot version, right? Go on. Oh, there you go. Okay, you are working. So, release management and delivery visibility. Now, again, this isn't the final view of this one, right? There'll be more in terms of dashboard. There'll be more. Hey, these are making progress. These are where they are. I can go and narrow this to say, okay, in progress or in planning, right? Now, yeah, committed is incorrect for release management and delivery because I'm doing certain things. So release management and delivery is the thing I'm kind of focused on right now. And that list again would only be, who they'd be my initiatives, the ones that are assigned to me, not necessarily everyone else's initiatives by default. So for release management and delivery, we define 4 deliverables: task model enhancements, progress roll-up and visibility, release management, and GitHub integration. That's also not a really great icon for that one. But task model enhancements now drives into deliverables. So as a product manager, product manager, I would be caring about these things, these deliverables that are for this initiative, right? I'd be saying, okay, well, these are the things I need to build out, and where are they in terms of their progress? Oh, interesting. Ah, okay. Um, yes. Anyway, so for this deliverable, this has three requirements: the task state lifecycle hardening, the task unique identifiers, and the task direct dependencies. So every task is a system generated unique identifier, visible in the UI and usable as a reference in external systems, right? That's merging two concepts, but it's fine, right? What it means by external systems is GitHub. Um, and it's I'm using this as a reference, not as an identifier, because identifier is what I use in my language of describing how I use the data. So the problem I find is when you start to merge words, when I say identifier, you think I mean Kai1234. But when I say identifier, I mean the GUID that I'm using as identifier, because if you overhear me speaking, right, and if I hear you speaking about identifier, I'm like, oh, that's, A4F3X, whatever, not a GUID. So it's very important to try and differentiate those terms to make sure that I'm not blurring the lines on the concept. So I'm using the word reference, right, as a reference. So this would actually need changing. Task unique references. Every task has a system generated unique reference. Visible in the UI and usable in external systems, e.g. GitHub. Right. So that tries to help clarify that. So we should be able to display task identifier and task list and details. We've done that. Implement unique identifier generation. We've done that. So these things have been done. These are the tasks that were set. So we go to implementation and go to backlog. This is where this gets a little bit messy now because I've got so many things. If we go to task, display task identifier and list details, we'll assign that to Alan and put that in sprint 1 and save that. And display add. So we go to the boards, look at sprint 1, display task identifier, surface the Kai identifier prominently on all task UI services, list rows, detail headers, and anywhere a task is referenced, it should be copyable so developers can paste it into PR tiles. We're not quite there yet, are we? So let's do that. Whenever I display reference, if that reference has a value, again, right now you see all these. This one has it, but these don't. It's because they were built prior to this system going in place. If I write code that says if the reference has a value, then allow it to be copied, then I'm writing a lie into my code to say a reference can be blank. Once this system goes live, no references would be blank, right? There is no way that happens. So I'm going to fall foul of my own test data. I've got to be careful not to build in code to allow for my test data. Right? I've got to be willing to wipe all this soon, right? That's the reality. I've got to wipe the system and start building again because now I've got a lot more features that I didn't have a month ago. And that's an important thing to remember. Don't be building your system with lies in it because of the data that you have in your test system. It's not healthy. So this is a reference label. I should be able to click that label and have reference copied to the clipboard. I should show a toast notification. Let's see if it does that. I'd be interested to know anyone else's opinions on that. Do you agree with that concept? Should I say that this reference could be empty? Like, because if it's empty, the system's broken. Things have gone wrong. Do I build for that? I personally, I don't. My opinion is that it's wrong. Hi, Fratberg. How you doing? What are we talking about? Building lies into your software because in my test data, things can be null. But, well, they can be empty, but they shouldn't be once the system's good. Where are we? Doing good. It's a good Monday morning. Off to a good start. I've made a lot of progress over the weekend on this project, so it's kind of making me feel uh, comfortable. Um, so I introduced the concept of references over the weekend. I introduced the concept of like this being able to view the details of this without hitting edit, so I can now display things. Um, I got versioning working so that the stores are a little bit more robust, and now it knows when things change. Um, so things are getting ever more complicated to use. However, they're getting ever more product looking. That makes sense. We'll try and implement this one last feature for today. Um, Overall, it's coming together. Things are looking up. Now, what I'm trying to get to is I'm trying to get to this delivery screen, right? So I'm trying to do everything I need to get to the delivery screen so I can build out what is a delivery or a release, sorry, build a release and track that release, right? So you'll then be able to go into the delivery screen and see, oh, this release is in progress. 50% of the tasks in it have been merged, 50% are outstanding, and here's where they are, right? So you'll know where things are at a release level perspective. So you start in initiatives, and your CEOs, your top brass, they can be looking at the system as a yeah, things are progressing, and then management and whatnot can be looking at the delivery side of things, seeing what's actually coming and whether we're on track for releases, so that they can better relay information without actually worrying about individual projects. They can know of the things we said will be in this release, 50% are ready. We've got another week until the release, and 50% are in testing. That's great. If 50% haven't even started development yet, you know there's a risk and you can warn people sooner. So what I'm trying to do is get to that point of displaying that release stuff. And at that point, I'll wipe the system again and then start using it to dog food development and see how that goes and track that through. Can I go from initiative through to planning to implementation and then to delivery? How does that flow? How does it work? And that's kind of my test of once that's doing that, then I can focus some energy on putting a version online and giving people access. Um, which I'm still considering how to properly do because I don't need to have everyone able to sign up and use it. Okay, so we can go to here, we can go to review there. Oh, that's a bit of a work. Okay, that works. The test is, does it copy it to the clipboard? It does. There you go. It copied it. Let's copy to clipboard. So there we go. We did a thing. So move that to in progress because we're working on it, right? So we surface it, we show it, we can review, we can see it on review tasks, we can see it on planning requirements tasks, we can see the implementation backlog and the boards. And it should be copyable so developers can paste it into PR tiles. So now we can paste that in. So you could use that in an actual feature slash FT3, display task identifier and list details or whatever. So, and we'll match that and say, yep, that's a branch that's associated with this this task. So we can move that to complete now. Planning and deliverables, no. So here I have initiative. I can navigate to release management and delivery. We need to save these filters. Something in the switchover got these cleaned out. So in terms of task model enhancements, we've done implement unique identifier generation. We've done that as by virtue of the thing. So unique identifier generation. One, save that. Oh, I need a toast notification there. So that's, we need to create unique identifier for tasks. Change that reference. And again, using the right words, right? We need it to be called a reference, because if we use identifier, we're gonna merge our data, our concepts, with the business concepts, and it's going to be harder to use. The prefix should be workspace scoped, should be project scoped. This reference is immutable. Once assigned, it will be used as the external reference for GitHub PR matching. There we go. So that's that. Now we can do, we've done that, right? So that was all part of that piece. Okay. So I think that's looking good for now, right? Bit by bit, day by day, it's making more sense. Again, I probably want to save things here and here to make sure I can navigate back and forth. But again, is that a workflow? Is that a workflow that I need to go through? Am I going to, as a product manager, start navigating between planning, implementation, and release, etc.? I have lots of plans for this, right? So this piece is essentially done, right? So task unique references is handled. Direct dependencies will come back around on that later. That's the concept of, there is a, hey, this task depends upon this other task. So if DevOps has a component, right, of this, I can say this task can be done, but it has a dependency on this other thing. And if it's blocked, the product manager can see that dependency and can track back to that dependency and push, this is overdue, why is this not done, before asking the developers, why hasn't your task been done yet, right? They can see it. We can indicate the blocker sooner without actually having to ask anyone. Lifecycle hardening is making sure the transitions and stuff on the tasks are done properly. So yeah. Manets, hello. How are you doing? Yeah. So I think log. Someone just pulled up outside of the house and the dogs are losing their minds. Okay. So in general, over the weekend, I made changes to the stability. I made changes to include the references. I included the ability to version. A lot of the stuff over the weekend was a lot of adding version as a concept into the system, so that a task has a version at the data level. You now have on LS tasks, when you create a task, it has a version field attached to it, and as you edit it, you can see that's on version 7. We now know when we get a message back from the server, hey, we've got version 7. So yep, we need version 7. We're still on version 6. That's okay. And we know to reload. So there's a lot of stuff there to try and help with when do you reload data. So a lot of backend changes, a lot of client changes. So yeah, making great progress at this point. Moving towards that delivery. So anyway, I have to go because I do have work to start in less than 20 minutes. My stream schedule is likely going to change again. My evening stream on Wednesday is likely to switch to either a Tuesday or a Thursday evening stream at this point. I'm going hopefully going back to karate on a twice weekly basis for a while. Getting some exercise in there, and that's on a Monday and Wednesday evening. Crack the whip on Mojo for me. I will do. Yes, needs to get on with it. So yeah, we'll continue on. I'll figure out the actual schedule, but for right now, I'll be back either Tuesday evening or Thursday morning. So yeah, we'll see. I'll update the schedule though. And as always, if you're interested in joining the Discord, you're more than welcome to come and hang out. You're more than welcome to ask any questions, your thoughts, opinions on what I've done, or you want to know my opinions or our opinions on your stuff. Share your own projects in there. That's perfectly fine. I'm always open to having a chat about code. So we're going to raid Coffee Then Code again because great streamer, building an amazing Twitch bot product. Looks fantastic. And it's the closest to what we're doing in terms of development. So thank you very much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day. And I will see you soon. Apparently that's going to come up on that screen. That's awesome. Bye.